Add to that point, though, yesterday while we were in education talking about how many empty school buildings are there. And in the conversation, Commissioner, it was brought up that, well, the last time we had to do a study, it was $5 million. And I was able to get the number of school buildings that are empty in my school district in an hour. So not only, Larry, do we need to see the cost, but is there a cheaper way of getting it? So in other words, I don't necessarily want to throw out all of our ability to get data just because it's a cost, because maybe the cost is higher than it needs to be. So I think on some things we can do much more cheaply than we're doing. On some things.
Yeah, just please trust our fiscal notes next session.
Okay. Well, on a lighter note,
or not.
On a lighter note, we've probably saved the state a lot of money by killing a bad bill by settling on a report or interim study.
We have a tendency to do that a lot too. That's right. Okay. Anybody else?
I did have.
Anyone else that has?
I wanted to ask. I didn't ask questions while they were testifying to get to the end.
Yes.
2 questions, Bob. First for you. You talked about, we talked about mandates earlier and unfunded mandates, and we think of some of the absurd things or some of the things that may not be needed. But you talked to the core of the 4x4, the science labs. So is it your position? Rhetorical question, probably. But is it your position that if the legislature passes curriculum mandates into the classroom, if we can't pay for them, we shouldn't pass them?
Exactly. And it's not that we don't agree with it, because we do agree with the curriculum, although we also feel like that there needs to be some expansion onto the science and math courses that are being offered. But yes, that's pretty much a bottom line as far as the way, I'm on the school board. I'm not a superintendent, but I'm on the school board, and from what I can see, if it's a mandate that is being pushed on us by the legislature, there needs to be some financial support that comes to us also. I didn't mean some. I should have backed that up.
Can I address that really quick? Since I've been chairman of the education committee, that has been a real hot button for me. I used to be the mayor of a community, and I know what it's like to get mandates, have people say to you, this is something you have to do, but there's no money with it. So every time that consciously I have tried not to put mandates onto school districts. Hence, this issue of the 4x4 science. It was my idea to put money in for science labs. Unfortunately, we only had so much money in the pot. We didn't have much. We recognized that there needs to be science labs associated with the 4x4. We put money in. Unfortunately, school districts like yours who have chosen to put more science labs in than we anticipated could have swallowed up that entire $20 million, needless to say.
Right.
We're going to have to try to find ways to continue that program through a longer period of time. It's not just a one-time, everybody ramp up immediately kind of a situation. That's what we had intended to do. So I want you to understand that this was not something that we were not cognizant of. We knew that that was going to take place, and we have put money in hopes that we could meet the need as soon as we could, as soon as possible.
And Mike, I had a question for, Eddie, I'm sorry. Eddie, I had a question for you. And if you can, and I don't know if you can remove your bias, and I don't mean that in a negative way, we all have a bias, out of this. But we pulled off a lot of, we peeled back the onion today in a lot of very positive ways, whether we start from scratch, whether we approach various issues in a very candid way. So I'm going to ask you very candidly. You said something earlier that caught my attention. And I realize we cannot consolidate school districts all over the state. But you said you have a district of 2,200 people. You're 20 minutes away from a big district. You can't compete with that district for teachers. And I think by my comments today, I'm very supportive of education superintendents, principals, and teachers. But there has to be some give and take. Why shouldn't we as a legislature also make some demands and say a district like yours needs to be consolidated? Because I'd be out of a job. That's what I said. You have to remove your bias.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think there can be some economies come out of that, but then you start removing local control and you start telling people these communities that you're going to go to school, this community, this community, this community. Well, then we have stepped further away from local control of running a school district. What probably got my attention more than anything was the discussion about cutting back some of the strings, not the accountability. Hold us accountable for what we're doing. but it'll give us a little flexibility on how to spend the money, because how we spend the money effectively in Bridgeport ISD may be completely different than Plano ISD, because our students are different, our needs are different, our communities are different. But if we both reach those academic achievement goals, who's to say which one did it best? Obviously, yes, there's going to be some financial issues. If money is coming out of a bottomless pit, but how do you manage the accountability on the use of financial resources?
But you had also said earlier, and I'm paraphrasing, basically, we put you in a position where you're against the wall, there's nothing you can do, you're handcuffed. Well, so are we.
I understand.
Because everything has to be on the table.
I don't want to be on your seat, in your seat.
We're going to have to put everything out on the table. And again, I realize, I don't want to speak for Senator Duncan, but I realize in a lot of the rural districts and the districts are so far apart, consolidation doesn't really make a difference. But for these smaller districts that are close to a bigger district, I think everything has to be on the table. And I know sports is an issue. Where my kids, there's a great movie called The Final Season about what they had to do in Iowa and one of the concerns of the small districts where my kids wouldn't be able to play on the big team, schools and jobs and all those things. But we have a finite amount of dollars in the state, and we have a unlimited amount of problems and opportunities.
I will say, under the current system, there is incentives in encouraging consolidation, and I actually have gone through a consolidation, and you give me a bond election any day over a consolidation election, because you start talking about the heart and soul of communities.
I understand. I understand.
But we still got into the, I guess it's unless it's changed dramatically, under current system, there's a 10-year ease into it, that if school district A is large district and school district B is small district, they consolidate. For 10 years, they actually draw money like they were still two separate districts as their consolidations. Does that sound correct? I don't know where the cost, that for 10 years, the cost of efficiencies didn't come in.
Right. Well, I just wanted to, since you brought that up, and it really raised my antenna when you said, gee, I'm right next door to a big district and I can't compete. It's kind of like,
I would prefer, like personally,
not our problem.
I would prefer to pursue more opportunities for cooperative service agreements between existing districts, where you shared service arrangements and you share whether, and somebody brought up earlier that a school district was talking about providing transportation for another school district.
Right.
You know, in our special ed cooperative, we're the big school. I mean, we have 2,200 students in our school, and the rest of them have 1,200, 1,100. One of them has 185
which
students.
really makes our point. You just.
Well, I understand, and that's why we're having those conversations now, though, about doing the cooperative
Maybe
for the
you
DAP.
need to be a 10,000 student district and take all those other ones. I'm just kidding. But.
Well, I think there's some cost. You're going to lose some cost effectiveness. You can get too big.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Could I make one statement on that?
Yeah,
Is
just
that
want to say
okay?
one thing also. Just 1 second. I just wanted to say, just as much as you joining a big district, you and 4 other small districts coming together makes a lot more sense, because you have those same concerns and needs and desires.
And I mean, I promise you, we're working on that in our cooperative right now, because we're, quote, the big guy, the big school. Getting the smaller school to turn loose of a little bit of control because you're the bigger person, it's hard to do.
Oh,
and so we're negotiating everything from, I mean, we're talking about transportation, we're talking about DAP, but it's one step at a time. And because I can't say that word, financial exigency.
Exigency.
Those are the,
I've had to say it every day.
I know. Those are the kind of things that are going to force people further into looking at making those decisions.
You are 100% correct.
Yeah.
It may not be that anybody has to dictate it. It may be that everybody does it by volunteering.
And we're probably an average target revenue. We're 5240. But our neighbors are 6,400, 6,000, but some of them at 4,700.
You're kind of the middle guy.
Yeah, and we've known this for some time. And whenever the system first came out, looked at it and discussed it, and for lack of better vocabulary, I described it as staying ahead of the wolf. The wolf's going to catch us, because as our costs keep going up, but our revenues are locked onto a target revenue per WADA, at some point we're not going to be able to do some of the things we're doing. So our goal has been trying to position ourselves to survive until the new system's in place.
Right.
And there's folks out there who have not been able to do that, and they're facing that survival question now.
Right.
And I know you know that.